Hey guys, I have a special treat for you today. I did an interview with David Garcia, who's lost 160 pounds, and he was simply a delight to talk to. He made the interview a breeze because he was so interesting. So here is the interview, and please enjoy and let me know what you think. All right, so here we are with David. David Garcia. Hi, David.
Hi, Kathy. Good to see you.
I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to do this interview.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
You're just awesome. David was on earlier with our group phone call with my weight loss group, and it was just fascinating. That hour just flew by. So, David, let's get started here. Let's talk about your weight loss, how much you lost, and how you did it, and just a little general bio.
Sure, absolutely. My name is David. I am 39 years old. I live in Los Angeles. I have struggled with obesity my entire life. I was a heavy kid. I was a heavy teenager. I was heavy in college. I was heavy after that. And throughout my life, starting as early as elementary school, I have tried various ways to lose weight, and there would be some were successful, some weren't, but ultimately I always gained the weight back. And I'd never really found what sort of worked for me, what sort of really clicked. And by the time I got into my early 30s, I was 400 pounds, and I was sort of resigned to the fact that I would never be able to lose the weight, and I'd sort of stopped trying. I thought that it was not possible, that it was always going to be a source of shame and unhappiness in my life, but there was nothing that I could do about it. I work in television, and at the time I was working on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and I had the opportunity to meet Richard Simmons through work and produce one of his appearances on the Ellen show, and I was talking with him backstage on the day of the taping, and I was 400 pounds, and he didn't address my weight directly, but he offered to help me, and it sort of scared the crap out of me because I didn't know what that would entail, and it was such a weird offer. You don't hear offers very often where people come out of nowhere and say they want to help you lose weight. It's a rare thing to hear, let alone from a famous celebrity. So I sort of hemmed and hawed for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and finally I sat up one morning in bed and I thought I would be a fool to not take him up on this opportunity. I didn't know what it would entail. I didn't know if I would be successful at it, but I thought I would regret it if I let it slip through my fingers. So I sent Richard a note, and I met with him about a week after that, and he asked me to start keeping a food log and writing down everything I ate, everything I drank, and emailing it to him about once a week. And so I started doing that. I decided that I would be completely honest with him and honest with myself, and he would sort of nudge me towards making different choices and better choices, and I started making changes on my own, uh, and my weight loss process started with that, and we'll probably get into that a little bit more. But long story short, I have lost 160 pounds. I have kept it off for uh, over 7 years now, and I'm going to keep keeping it off. And I document all of this. I share everything that I'm doing, the struggles, the successes, everything in between, on my website, keepitupdavid.com. And I think we'll probably address more of this. But Kathy, how should we go about doing that?
Well, first of all, I love the story. I want you to tell the story about how when you spoke to Richard on the phone, how he had a little song for you.
Oh, yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
So when you are when celebrities go on talk shows, more often than not, they do a pre-interview with a producer before the taping, a couple days before, and so they can figure out, the producer and the celebrity can figure out what they're going to talk about, what the celebrity will talk about on the show, what's most appropriate for that audience, and what the host will be most interested in hearing about, and sort of stuff like that. And so I had my pre-interview scheduled with Richard, and and uh, when he called, my assistant put him through to me, And without saying hello, he just sang me a song. And he had taken my name and written some lyrics and rewritten a popular song. I can't remember which one it was now because it was so joyous and so unexpected that he sang me a verse of a song before even saying hello. It was super sweet, and it was just indicative of what would become a really important friendship in my life.
Well, he had a real ability to do that and made people feel, I met him on the front door of a cookie factory, and it was below zero, and he had his little shorts and tank top on, and I will never forget, he came walking up. I was the only like fan there. He was doing a business transaction with his cookies that they made back then, and I'll never forget, he came walking up singing, "Let me call you sweetheart," and you just get swept up in it. And he
Yep.
was a way of making you feel comfortable right away. And
Yep. It's infectious, and it's welcoming, and it's unconditional, and it's one of his hallmarks.
it is. Wow, what a story. So, David, if somebody was just getting started here and they just didn't know how to get started, what would be your advice how to get started losing weight?
Well, first of all, I would remind them that everyone has been in those shoes. Everyone that's ever tried to lose weight, get healthy, has sort of struggled to figure out what that first step should be. And what ended up working for me, and what I recommend everyone do, is sort of take a look at their day-to-day life and their schedule, and their work, and where they are on their commute, and how much time they have during their day, and just find one thing that they can replace with something healthier. So maybe at the beginning it is skipping a beer, replacing a beer with a glass of water, or replacing a dessert with a piece of fresh fruit, or finding 20 minutes to go on a walk, in the morning or as soon as you get home from work. Finding that one thing that you can do that's reasonable, that's not gonna, derail your day, or recommend finding that one thing that you can fit into your day that's a healthy swap, whether it's replacing a beer with a glass of water, or replacing a dessert with a piece of fruit, or just going for a 20-minute walk. Finding something that you can incorporate into your day, that you can build into a habit that is doable and reasonable, and not and going from there. And then once you do that for a week or two, just that one healthy thing, build on that and find the next healthy thing that you can do, and sort of let that momentum continue to accumulate in a way that is always within the framework of, this is my life now, this is something that's doable, this is something that's accomplished, that I can accomplish on a day-to-day basis, and just sort of go from there.
Well, and you shared a little bit that earlier about what you did. You started bringing your
Yeah.
lunch to work.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was bringing my lunch every day. That was one of the first things that I started doing, because my work environment was just swimming in junk food. So I taught myself real quick to stay out of the staff kitchen, where there was always gifts and donuts and muffin baskets and things like that, and instead bringing my own lunch. And then and I knew that I could have one healthy meal a day, even if I made poor choices in the morning or poor choices when I got home. My lunch was going to be a healthy lunch. And then I also started bringing a change of clothes, so I could go for a walk after work before I got in the car, because I sort of knew that if I got home and planted myself on my couch, then I wasn't going to get up and want to exercise. So I brought a change of clothes, and I brought my lunch. And those were two of the first things that I started doing. And after a couple weeks where that became ingrained in me, and it became habitual for me to grab, a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, as well as the lunch that I had made the night before, just grab that out of the fridge. And that became habit. And then I started figuring out other things that I could do to sort of build on that, because now that had become a habit and I was ready for more.
Wow. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly how to do it. Just one thing at a time, but it has to be doable and something that you'll stick with. That's how I've done it too.
It's the way to go. I mean, I applaud people that have the energy and the drive to say, hey, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and eliminate, all these sorts of things from my diet and exercise X number of minutes. That sort of enthusiasm is great, but that plan where you're eliminating entire food groups, or you're committing to, an hour of exercise every day, when you really don't have that time, it's not setting yourself up for long-term success, because it's not sort of it may look good in the book or the magazine article that you're reading it in, but it may not be applicable to your life and your day to day. So if you find those little things that are doable or reasonable, and then you establish that pattern of doing it, then you're going to stick with it because it's designed around you.
Well, and I also think, absolutely, I think that too, that we do something every day you're proud of, and that builds your self-esteem, because a lot of overweight people, they just don't feel good about themselves. So that, that is, that's a great suggestion for
Yeah,
all.
you're exactly right. It's a way of setting a little goal that is unrelated to the scale and unrelated to any other sort of metric of success. So even at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anything else does, because you reached your daily goal of going for a half-hour walk, or spending 5 more minutes doing exercise than you normally would have, or eating, whatever your definition of a healthy meal would be. You've reached that goal. That's something to celebrate. And then you can wake up the next day and say, hey, now I have that goal again. I got to do that walk again. I got to eat a similarly healthy meal, or make this one healthy swap. And that's something to celebrate. And I'll tell you, when you're 400 pounds, and I'm sure, Kathy, you can relate to this, um, the sort of enormity of your weight loss situation can be overwhelming. It's really hard to wake up and look in the mirror and say, oh, I have hundreds of pounds to lose. But if you wake up and say, and don't focus on that part, and instead focus on, oh, hey, I have already made my lunch, so now all I got to do is eat it today, and I'm on a good path. Or I'm going to start my day by doing some stretches, or doing the workout video that I have. It's already in my DVD player, so all I got to do is hit play and move around a little bit. Then that's a goal that you can focus on and celebrate, and not sort of feel like you're drowning in hundreds of excess pounds.
Absolutely. David, I know this isn't in the questions, but we talked earlier about what you do for exercise, and it's so fascinating. I would really like to make sure to have you talk about it. You want to share what sport you're involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about it. I am what is known as a tower runner, and that is the tower running is the sport of racing up stairwells in skyscrapers. And if it sounds terribly difficult and really exhausting, I can vouch for it. It is both of those things and so much more. It all sort of stemmed from exactly what we talked about. I sort of stumbled into the sport because one day I was tired of being intimidated by the Stairmaster at the gym. And I thought it looked really difficult. Everyone that I saw using it was just like drenched in sweat. And so I didn't wake up one day and decide I was going to climb a skyscraper stairwell. I woke up and I said, I'm going to do 5 minutes today, just 5 minutes on that Stairmaster. And the next week I did 6, and the week after that I did 7, and the week after that I did 8. And soon I was the display on the Stairmaster has the equivalent of how many floors you've climbed. And I would always pay attention to that. That was the most fascinating part for me, because I would go home and say, okay, I climbed 40 stories at the gym today and the Stairmaster, and I would look it up online, and I would find a building that was 40 stories, and I would look up pictures of that building, and seeing that building that tall, 40 stories, it motivated me to go back the next time and try for 42 or for 45. And after 5 or 6 months of doing that, I had sort of climbed the equivalent of all these famous buildings all around the world. And I heard about a stair race in Los Angeles, where I live, that was 63 stories. And I was like, oh, well, I'm doing it hypothetically. I might as well give it a go for real. And that first, I trained and trained and trained for that stair race. It was the thought of doing it for real somehow seemed so much scarier and terrifying than doing it at the gym. Um, and this was in 2012, and I got there, and I looked up at this building, this 63-story building, and I just started, like, it just was the prospect of climbing that building, even though I'd done all the training, was so scary. But I did it, and I entered that building, and my only goal was not to stop. and I climbed those stairs and I got to the roof, um, and I couldn't stand up. And I first I sank down to my knees, and then I was on the ground, just waiting for my heart rate to settle down and for being able to sort of breathe at a comfortable clip again. And meanwhile, every single muscle in my body and my legs and my glutes and my chest cavity, everything just ached because it was so difficult. But um, but I felt this sense of pride, and I have been proud in my life before, but never for but I didn't quite feel this feeling before because it was pride. It was mixed with, certainly the accomplishment. It was mixed with being literally on the roof of a skyscraper, looking out over all of Los Angeles, and I'd never been there before, and I'd never seen the city like that, and I could look down at the and see exactly how far I just climbed because the course was all the race course was all below me at that point, and I sort of felt this sense of invincibility that I had never ever felt before. um, and I became hooked, and I've met all these awesome people through this sport. I've competed all around the country, um, and now I can say I've raced internationally because I didn't mention this before, Kathy, but in March I went and competed at the Eiffel Tower in Paris.
That was
And,
my next question. Have you gone across? Wow. The
yeah, and
hour.
Eiffel Tower. It was you have to be. You can't just sign up. You have to be selected to participate in that race. And this year I was one of three three Americans that were invited to go to Paris, and
What an honor.
it was a huge honor. It was a great big deal of a race because it was televised. It was live. Uh, there was a live stream coverage of it on the online that people can tune in. 150 people tuned in from all over the world, and there were commentators and cameras everywhere. And I got interviewed a couple times, which was a really cool big deal. And it definitely is an evening that I will never ever forget. And it was quite literally an evening that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't faced a fear years earlier of just doing 5 minutes, 5 minutes on the Stairmaster at the
Oh
gym.
my goodness, what a story. What a story. 400 pounds to
Not anymore.
not anymore to climbing, I mean, climbing into the heavens. Quite an analogy. Wow. If I was a preacher, I'd have some good material there to work on. Amazing. David, you're just fascinating. There's so many layers to you. Now, on your blog, Keep It Up David, and I will make sure and put that on the screen. I have a ticker that I will put it on. On your blog, do you put like your races? Do you keep, so we can track you doing that stuff? Do you keep that?
Yep, I do. Every race that I do, I write a recap and I go through my experiences at that race. I take a lot of pictures and share them. I also sort of announce upcoming races, and a big part of that is because most of the races that I do are charity functions, and which is another great reason that I'm involved in the sport is that I've had the pleasure of raising thousands upon thousands of dollars for all sorts of worthy causes, and I'm so grateful to these organizations, both for the good work that they're doing for whatever their charity's function is, but because they host these events that I love doing, and they give me the opportunity and a reason to go across the country and compete and give me access to these building stairwells that otherwise are, for security reasons, never open. Um, so another thing that I do in my blog is I actively fundraise and support the American Lung Association, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is a big one. They do races all over the place. I've raised money for 9/11 charities, the local YMCA, lymphoma and leukemia organization or society, Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So yeah, the stair racing is a big part of the blog, the training, the actual races themselves. But it's just one part of the blog. I also share a lot about food, what the recipes that I'm making. There's a big mental health component because I think that's a big part of this is being honest about what my vulnerabilities, what I'm struggling with, what I'm what I'm finding success with, and those shifts that take a, that switch a struggle into a success, or a success into a struggle, and sort of identifying. And first and foremost, the blog is a way that I keep myself accountable, because um, at the beginning I was working with Richard, and he was keeping me accountable, because before that no one was, including myself. I wasn't keeping myself accountable, and now I use the blog as a way to share myself and share this process, much like you do with this really awesome YouTube channel. You're putting yourself out there because it is so easy to sort of hibernate, in your bedroom with junk food, or make choices, because I think both of us, we live by ourselves. And so, if there's no one around to report to, there's no one around to share with, then for me, I'm going to make bad choices. And so the blog is first and foremost a tool for myself to keep myself accountable. And what I am so thankful and grateful for is that it's become a way that I can connect with other people, and that and I'm really sort of honored and flattered and humbled every time people tell me that they use it as a resource, because the truth is that I use it for a resource too. And I feel really lucky that I can share content, and in a way that people are relating to and connecting to, because I search for that myself. And I love sharing the parts of me that have been a huge part of why this has been a successful process for me.
Yeah. Well, your blog is fabulous. And there's a lot of weight loss blogs. People talk about themselves and record their weight loss, and that's helpful. But your recipes are just like, they're really good, first of all, and there's so many of them, and they're actually recipes that you have modified for yourself. So do you have a favorite on there that you'd like to share, that you'd like to talk about, a favorite recipe?
My favorites it continues to evolve, because um, food is a big way that I explore, and then and exploration and continuing to learn is a big part of this process for me, because I always want to be learning about myself and about food and about exercise, because I know that will keep me interested and motivated.
Right.
Because I'm always sort of uh, open to evolving and open to learning, I tend not to sort of pinpoint a favorite, but I will say that um, that lately, meaning off and on over the past year, I've become really enamored with cauliflower rice, which is just raw cauliflower that's shredded into rice-sized pieces, and you can use it in a really versatile, different ways. Um, and it's a really healthy way to it's a really healthy ingredient that you can use in place of rice, in place of grains. And on my website I have a version of cauliflower crust pizza, and I have a cauliflower like a grilled cheese sandwich with a cauliflower rice pieces of bread instead of actual bread. And it's a way that I can bulk up salads without using quinoa or rice or couscous or pasta. And so that is something that I'm sort of really enjoying at the moment, because there's so much I can do with it. And even though I feel like I've discovered cauliflower rice in my own life, I'm still discovering the ways that I can use it.
Well, I've been kind of putting that off, trying that, because I just have. But I'm going to try it now. I'm going to look up a recipe, and
Do
I'll
it.
share it with the viewers.
And the great thing is that it's sort of it's been sort of very trendy lately. So you can actually find pre-riced cauliflower in bags at the supermarket next to
Right.
like packaged salads and pre-cut veggie sticks and stuff like that. But if you have the means, and if you have a box grater or a food processor, and you have the time and energy, you can make your own, which is also pretty satisfying. Again, if you have the time and the are willing to put in a little bit of elbow grease, or have the food processor that can take it apart real quick. And that's also part of it, is that I feel invested and I enjoy food that I have had that has, where I've been invested in the process. So rice cauliflower pre-bagged and and ready to go at the supermarket is a great tool for grab and go stuff and quick meals and putting together a dinner when after a long day at work and all that stuff. But it's also something that I can make myself, and then I get even that much more enjoyment out of the finished product because I'm literally involved in every step of the way.
So how many meals do you cook? Like 50% of your meals, 80% of your meals? What would you say how many meals you cook for yourself?
It changes, and it's cyclical. I go through periods where I'm sort of very involved in making everything, and I go through periods where I lean heavily on like the sort of grab and go section at the store,
Mhm.
and pre-made salads or delivery food. And I know how to order well off of menus to make healthy choices. Um, at the moment, I'm sort of making, I would say, probably half my meals.
Okay,
Um,
that's
but
way above average.
it is way above average. But I work from home, so that's a big part of it. As I have that, I don't need to think ahead and plan a lunch in order to bring it. I can just go into the other room and eat my lunch because it's there and there's my fridge. But I think that even if I'm not making my own foods and I'm, sort of leaning on pre-made options or restaurants or grocery, grab and go at the grocery store, the thing that really works for me is having a plan. So, homemade food is great and there are healthy options elsewhere, but just knowing where I'm going to eat today, starting the day knowing, having a game plan for where I'm going to eat has been helpful. And then it doesn't really matter if I'm making it myself or if I'm going to stop by the store and pick this sort of thing up because I know that's the plan. And where I get into trouble is um, when I don't have that plan and all of a sudden I'm at the end of the day and it's the weekend and I'd run errands and I'm ravenous and I drive down that street in town on the way home where like every single fast food restaurant is lined up waiting for me and
Yeah.
every town has one, or many. And but if I have a plan where even if I don't know exactly what I'm gonna make, I know that I have these veggies at home. I have, I had thawed a chicken breast, moved a chicken breast from the freezer to the fridge, and that's thawing and gonna be ready to go. If I know I have the plan to cook at home and the ingredients to cook at home, then that's going to get me through that stretch of that busy road with the fast food restaurants because I have that plan. And so I try to avoid putting myself in the situation where I am super duper hungry and no plan because that's going to be disastrous for me.
Mhm. Yeah, that I think planning ahead is key. It is absolutely key.
Yeah, and there have been times where I've been really specific with the plan. I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat this and I'm going to use these ingredients and this much of them and I'm going to make it and that'll be my dinner. And then and then when I'm in that mindset, if I go and meet friends at a restaurant, then I make sure we figure out what restaurant we're going to and I look at the menu ahead of time online and I figure out what I'm going to order and then I don't stray from it when I get there.
Oh,
And
that's
there have been times where I've been really, really diligent about that. And there are times where I'm in a good place and I'm sort of feel like I'm sort of on a roll, so to speak, and I can be a little more loose. But I'm never going to put myself in a situation where the only option I have is McDonald's, uh, and because I just don't want to be there. The other thing is that I know for myself that I have this sort of floodgate mentality where if I make if I put myself in that situation and I make bad choices, then I'm more inclined to think, oh, well, this day is shot, so I might as well eat whatever I want and I'll get back on track tomorrow. And the damage that I can do when I give myself the permission to eat whatever I want is really, it's too much because then what happens the next day is I think, oh, well, I can just put that off the next day and I'll get back on track the next day. And before you know it, the next day turns into next week, turns into next month, turns into after the holidays, turns into after my birth. There's always I can do it later. And I'm prone to that sort of thinking of I can do it later. So I need to nip it in the bud by having that plan or having some semblance of a plan that I can stick to on a day-to-day basis.
yeah. Wow, that Absolutely, I agree. I do the same thing. If I'm not, I have to have that stuff ready and at least a basic plan, some option.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, David, as we wrap things up here, do you have any advice that you would give our viewers that are trying to lose weight? Do you have any specific things that you would suggest?
My advice for anyone starting or anyone struggling is just to figure out that one or two small steps that you can take on a day-to-day basis to be healthier. Um, so figure out what it is and do it. And then, in a general sense, I think that it's really wise to cut yourself some slack, and embrace that people make mistakes, that you make mistakes, that this is a process. And if you can and you make the bad choice, sort of do the best you can to close that floodgate, and get yourself back on track as fast as you can, and let it go. You ate whatever you didn't want to eat. It's done. It's over with. There's nothing you can do about it. Just get back on track. And then the other thing that I would that has been really helpful for me is about cravings.
Mhm.
Um, and I get cravings all the time. I've been at this for 8 years. I still get cravings. I'm still tempted. There are temptations all the time. The one thing that I do is really focus on identifying what the craving is, because I get really broad, like I'm craving salt or I'm craving sweet, and then I can sort of eat all sorts of stuff that's salty or sweet and still feel like I didn't satisfy the craving and eat more because I didn't identify what the craving was. So maybe I can really buckle down and realize that it's ice cream, or maybe I can buckle down and for me it's Cheetos. I freaking love Cheetos. So I figure out what that craving is, and then I try to sleep on it so it's not an impulse thing. And then the next day, if I'm still fixated on it, then I'll go and satisfy the craving, whether it's finding a healthy swap, um, or just giving in and buying like the gas station bag of chips or snack pack of cookies or whatever, enjoying it, and then getting back on track. And then,
I love the
um,
sleeping on it part.
do
That's
you love the what?
I like the fact that you sleep on it.
Yeah, I try to. And if it hits in the morning, then maybe I try to just go a big, let it sit for hours, like put it off till the evening if I can't quite make it overnight. Um, and then the other thing is that don't grocery shop when you're hungry. Like people say that it's like sort of a cliche rule, but it's so true that bring a list, stick to the list, and don't shop when you're hungry.
Mhm. Good advice. Well, David, you are fascinating, and I want to be your friend. So I hope that we have many conversations to come. But I have a lot of people on my vlog who don't have weight problems, but they get inspiration from just because everybody has a vice, everybody has something they struggle with, and you certainly have given us a lot to chew on, so to speak. And people who don't have a weight problem can certainly learn from your commitment to take care of yourself and your tenacity. I appreciate you so much, David. Thank you for coming. And, you know, just best of luck with everything. You're awesome. I hope we meet face to face someday.
That would be great, and thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a lot of fun, um, and uh, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel. I'll do your heavy lifting for you because you do it after the end of every video. Click like, click subscribe, then go over to keepitupdavid.com and sign up for me there. Follow both of us on social media, and that's about covers it, right?
Yeah, we're all in it together.
We're all in it together. There you go.
Each other. All right, David. Well, thanks. And I will talk to you soon.
Have a great night.
You too.